I'm sure you've heard the statistics about the median net worth of U.S. homeowners versus renters. And when you look at something like $255,000 for a homeowner versus, I think the stats are $6,300 actually. Having your security deposit just docked and taken away from you can be a major deal. You know,
it's debilitating.
It is, right?
It's completely like you're robbing someone of their freedom to move. And so I also think, the landlords, property managers, they have, depending state by state, whether it's 2 weeks to give the security deposit back or a month with the itemized list of deductions. If you have everything you need the day the resident moves out, give it back to them that day. Like, that's what we're trying to do. You should be able to get your security deposit back the day you move out.
Yes, you should be able to. And this is when we talk about the opportunities PropTech has to offer. This is one of the most fundamentally broken processes, and it's disproportionate, the impact. Frankly, let's be honest, right? The owners of real estate tend to be very wealthy, and this is just the way society works. It's the tenants who are marginalized, and the median net worth, an entire chunk of your net worth is tied up in a security deposit, and to not get it back, as you said, can be destructive. Also, the power landlords have too. If you don't pay your rent, your credit gets hurt in a bad way. If your credit's hurt, you can't pay your rent. If you can't get your security deposit back, or a part of it back, right? What are you supposed to do? We have a serious issue with homelessness. These are real issues, and it's good to see some types of solutions coming out in the market. So, what do you see state by state? Do you see any major trends, or is this problem really a problem that is more or less the same problem throughout the US, or does it vary state by state tremendously?
It's the same problem. I mean, we have everything from, variant Class A properties to Section 8 housing to condominiums in San Francisco to rural homes in South Dakota, all using RentCheck. And the common denominator is that inspections are essential to property management, but they continue to be an ongoing hassle because property managers, they want to scale their business, but they just don't have, like with every other industry, there's a labor shortage, and they don't have the capacity to have boots on the ground to do these regular routine inspections, which is why PropTech, has become the behemoth that it is, and why residents are the future. Like involving the resident and resident empowerment, are the future of property management.
Well, Lydia, what do you see when it comes to the types of claims that are made against tenants? Where does damage tend to occur? Are there certain pieces of the home and furniture and the fixed assets that are constantly in dispute and where the damage tends to occur?
It's typically around cleanliness in, the most used areas, which are kitchens and bathrooms. That's where tenants are getting docked, not cleaning out, the refrigerator is a big one, drains, etc.
Like drains
which
clogging up.
What?
Plumbing issues, drains clogging up.
Exactly. Yeah, regular maintenance. And how do you mitigate that? Is you lay out what the expectations are. And how do you do that? By regularly getting visibility on your units. And that's all about education. You can't expect a renter to be perfect off the gate, but you can certainly educate them over what the expectations are.
I'm sure there's many cases where having pets is certainly a big hit on the security deposit, because pets can cause a lot of damage. Is that a trend that you're seeing?
Not, people ask all the time, what if your resident gets a pet and they're, how do I know that they're not having a pet illegally? It's the same thing of, well, you could tell them you're going to inspect the unit tomorrow and they happen to leave their pet with their friend while you inspect the unit. It's the same thing. I don't think that's going away.
Well, I think I'm actually referring to the fact that having a pet is more likely to cause more wear and tear, which as a result is going to mean more damage done to the unit. So, having a pet legally, not illegally. And
yeah, it also depends on the pet. You can say the same thing about a toddler.
True. True, true. And
Or
they don't
even,
charge toddler fees, and they can't
yeah,
discriminate and say you can't have toddlers. But of course, you can charge pet fees, and you can have rules around whether you're allowed pets or not.
yeah. I mean, I think this is an issue but we've also seen, especially depending on the type of unit, pet friendly places are booming. There's pet, in condo buildings and multifamily areas, pet designated areas, pet washing stations. All of this, we've seen a trend, and even with rent checks like product offering, we're not just doing unit inspections. Now we have whole building out multifamily area inspections. So
Wow.
property managers can get really proper documentation, making sure the elevators have been cleaned, or that the mail room is organized, or the bike storage room, is orderly, and as a way to really organize all of their buildings and properties, and have a checklist for managing what they look like and who's doing what and who's getting what. And especially in COVID, that's been a big concern for our customers.
Right, and COVID especially, there were already a lot of concerns about apartment affordability. Moving costs, rents are rising, stagnant wages. So many renters are left in the worst of situations. Interesting stats, 78% of US workers were living paycheck to paycheck. That's a shocking fact, and 60% of Americans apparently have less than $1,000 in savings. And COVID is just compounding problems. It's a sad fate that we're in today. Now, we've got a lot of owners, landlords, investors listening to this podcast. What advice do you have? Of course, to use your product RentCheck, but how can they rethink their security deposit process and their move in and move out inspections? It's something that typically some people have owner operated properties, so those guys are really interested. In other cases, it's something you just outsource to your property manager. So speak to owners as well who have property managers. Is there something that they can do and push their property managers to do?
Yeah, so I think, first, just in general, by having a more transparent process, you're going to avoid disputes with your residents. So if you're providing and doing a thorough move-in inspection and share that with the resident, again, they then know this is what it must look like when they move out if they want their deposit back. And then also for owner operators, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? And so and owning a property is a major asset. And if you're regularly getting inspections from your property management company, you feel better about your investment. You feel better about knowing your asset is being well taken care of. And so why wouldn't you do that? It really doesn't cost you much to have the resident do this. And it also helps build the relationship between residents and their property managers, because there's less, tension, because everyone's on the same page of what the unit looks like, when something's getting fixed, etc.
Yeah. Now, do you see any correlation between the the type of asset? So is there more damage done in lower income or affordable housing, Section 8 versus Class A? Any trends you see there?
No, I mean, messy people exist in all economic brackets. I will say that. But I will say we have property managers, people get creative when it comes to getting their tenants, their residents to do inspections, or again, we handle all of the reminders and education about the inspection. That's our bread and butter, is involving the resident and explaining to them why this is important, and really, text message reminders, email reminders, you name it. But we've also seen property managers, if whoever completes the inspection on time is entered it to win, a gift card, or you get $20 off your rent, or we have some with affordable housing, before the government comes in and does their annual inspection, they have their renters do a RentCheck inspection. So this way they get ahead of damage before, there's no surprises, and they pay their residents to do that, which I think is great. So there's a lot of things, and there's also other companies that are all about rewarding renters for doing things. And I think that's going to only increase. That's another trend in PropTech as well.
Yeah, a major trend. We're investors in a startup called Stake, which gives cash back to renters as they pay their rent back on time. And tenants love it. They're part of the process. There's a reward. and there's an alignment of interests, which tends to not happen often in property, which is a shame. Property managers have a lot of power in these situations. The assumption is that the larger the property management firm, the more processes they have, the more organized they are. Is that true? Do you see that maybe smaller property managers tend to, because they're trying to cut costs and they operate more in a lean way, perhaps they don't have procedures and policies in place, and there's inconsistency, and there is pretty poor move in, move out and inspection processes? Do you see that trend? I mean, that's the intuitive assumption.
I mean, I see that trend with big property management companies as well, no matter the size or they're just not efficient. I think a lot of people are approaching RentCheck because they want to scale their business. They're growing, depending on the size, whether it's 10 to 100 doors each month, and they want to scale, and they can't do that if they are still having someone walk the unit with a resident, and filling out a paper checklist and then goes nowhere. No one can access it. No one remembers where it was, or they're giving a resident a paper checklist to fill out and return, and then they never get it back. And then you get into this he said, she said, they said argument at the end of the lease. And it's a mess. And I think in general, property management companies, whether you have 10 units or 20,000, you want a system that you trust on both sides. Like, you want your renters to trust it, and you want your team to trust the system in which you're operating in. And historically, that's just not been the case. The other thing is, back to residents and how property managers have all this power. When you think about the experience as a renter, renters spend majority of their income on rent. Like, this is what they're spending the most money on. And renting a home is the most intimate consumer experience. Consumers are also used to documenting and reviewing all these other things in their life. After they take a Lyft, they rate their driver. After they stay in an Airbnb, they rate their host. And renting a home is no different, but it's the most intimate consumer experience. It's where you spend the most time. It's where you feel safe. It's where you fall in love. It's where you see your children. It is the most expensive and personal consumer experience of all time. And if you can involve the renter in the process, or educate them to be a better renter, to treat the property better, property managers are going to love that. They already do. They want happy customers, which is the resident. They want their renters to leave good reviews. They want their residents to stick around, at least the good ones.